You would think the Browns had learned their lesson by now. But nope. Once again, Cleveland fumbled something precious. This time, they fumbled Shedeur Sanders. And now he's gone. Gone and glowing up. Because just 5 minutes after that decision dropped, Shedeur wasn't sulking, wasn't tweeting cryptic Drake lyrics, and definitely wasn't sitting at home feeling sorry for himself. Nah. Shedeur Sanders signed a $14 million deal, independent, strategic, and 100% player-owned. And the Browns' front office is absolutely spiraling. This isn't just a story about a player getting dropped. This is a story about a star turning the narrative into a business move and leaving his haters choking on the exhaust fumes of his next chapter. Let's rewind.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It all started with what should have been a normal Thursday. You've got GMs pacing hallways, coaches reviewing training camp footage, and somewhere deep in the Cleveland facility, someone hits send on a decision that would haunt the franchise. Shedeur Sanders released. Cut. Dropped. Brushed off like he was just another camp arm. No warning. No context. Just a polite, cold, generic statement about roster evaluation. The internet erupted. Memes. Reactions. Fans going ballistic. NFL Twitter having a collective meltdown. People were actually stunned. Because Shedeur wasn't underperforming. He wasn't problematic. He wasn't doing anything but, outplaying half the quarterback room. He was running clean 2-minute drills. He was reading defenses like a veteran. He had command of the field. The huddle? Silent when he spoke. And the Browns still let him walk? That's not just a mistake. That's a legacy error. But the part that really sealed their fate? What Shedeur did next. Instead of waiting for another team to come calling, Sanders flipped the playbook entirely. He announced his next move live, in real time. With a press conference, he organized himself. And this wasn't your average "thanks for the opportunity" speech. This was Shedeur Sanders launching a $14 million media, brand, and development deal, with himself as the centerpiece. That's right. While the Browns were sitting around deciding if Dillon Gabriel could make it through a blitz without panicking, Shedeur was sitting down with media giants, youth sports organizations, and digital production companies to build a full empire around his name, talent, and vision. He calls it the Locker Room Legacy Project. Yeah, a whole ecosystem, training centers, a digital series, a youth mentorship pipeline, nil consulting, and yes, he's still playing football, but on his terms. Because here's what the Browns, and frankly a lot of teams, don't understand. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a movement. He's part of a new generation of athletes who don't just want to play the game, they want to own the game. And when Cleveland handed him a disrespectful "good luck out there" slip, Shedeur turned it into leverage. Now not only is he more visible than ever, he's more powerful. Let's talk about the Browns side of this. Because, they are fuming. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam allegedly found out about Shedeur's $14 million announcement from Twitter. And word is, the mood inside the building turned from smug to panicked real quick. You see, they thought they were sending a message by cutting Shedeur. Something about humbling him. Something about too much attention. Something about culture fit. Let's decode that for what it really is. They didn't like that Shedeur didn't play the game the way they're used to. He wasn't deferential. He wasn't passive. He wasn't content sitting in the background and waiting his turn. He had swagger, but it was backed by substance. And instead of embracing that, they tried to contain it. Spoiler alert, you can't bench momentum. And when you try, you end up looking like the bitter ex who dumped the one person that made you interesting, only to watch them launch a wildly successful career when the breakup and never look back. Now here's where it gets even more delicious. Not 48 hours after Shedeur's announcement, guess what starts happening? Phone calls. Other NFL teams suddenly remember his name. Coaches texting. Agents reaching out. Analysts on ESPN running highlight reels they forgot to play earlier. Why? Because no one wants to be the next team that passed on the guy who built a brand, inspired a fan base, and made the league look outdated, all before his second season even started. The tide is turning. What used to be seen as distractions are now seen as assets. A quarterback who can rally a fan base on social media? That's money. A QB who can inspire a locker room and lead youth programs? That's culture. A leader who knows how to speak, brand, sell, and inspire? That's not a luxury anymore. That's a requirement. And Shedeur checked every single box. By the time this season kicks off, Shedeur Sanders might not even need to be on an active roster to be the most talked about player in football. Think about that. He's become the conversation without even taking a snap. And the Browns? They're scrambling to explain why they let a potential franchise cornerstone walk out the door. You've got people whispering about internal politics, rumors flying about jealous staff, players giving vague interviews full of no comments. But the truth is simple. They got scared. Scared of losing control. Scared of his voice. Scared of his power. And now they're dealing with the consequences. Because that $14 million move? That's just the beginning. Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for permission anymore. He's building the stage. And pretty soon, everyone else will be asking for a seat on it. So here's the real takeaway. Sometimes being dropped isn't the end. It's the ignition. The Browns thought they were writing Shedeur's final chapter. Turns out they were just setting up his origin story. And now, the league, the fans, the media, they all know who the real main character is. Not the guy throwing checkdowns in Cleveland, but the one who got cut, clapped back with a $14 million empire, and turned rejection into dominance. Let us know in the comments. Was this the Browns' worst decision since they passed on Mahomes? Or are they secretly watching this unfold and realizing they might have launched the biggest star of the next generation? One thing's for sure. Shedeur Sanders isn't done. He's just getting started. And the next move? It might cost a lot more than $14 million. You can almost feel it in the air, that mix of panic and regret floating through the halls of the Browns front office. They thought they'd rid themselves of a problem. They thought releasing Shedeur Sanders was a bold leadership move, a message to the locker room, an example. But the only message anyone heard loud and clear was, "We let the future walk out the door." And now, that future has receipts, a $14 million business play, a growing empire, and more attention than half the league's starting quarterbacks combined. Let's be honest, when Shedeur was drafted, people still saw him through the lens of Coach Prime's son. There were whispers about nepotism, assumptions that his hype was manufactured, doubt about whether his swagger could actually translate at the pro level. But all that? Gone. Because with one swift, clean, highly strategic move, Shedeur showed the entire football world what so many couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge. He's not a storyline. He's a brand. And not the kind of brand that lives on Instagram highlights or viral dance clips. The kind of brand that influences team cultures, that inspires young athletes, that scares franchises into wondering whether they just got left behind. And Cleveland? Oh, they are deep in that regret spiral. Let's get into the real reason why. This wasn't just about letting go of a talented quarterback. It was about failing to see what talent looks like in 2025. Because the game has changed. It's no longer just about your 40 time or how tight you can spin a post route in the red zone. It's about gravity. Do you pull people in? Do your teammates play harder when you're in the huddle? Do fans rally behind you even when you're not on the field? Do kids copy your throw, your walk, your work ethic? Shedeur does all of that, and he hasn't even started a regular season game. And the Browns still said, "Yeah, we're good." Now, they're watching him post up with investors, sit on panels, speak at youth summits, and sign a $14 million partnership package built entirely around his own vision. That's the new game. And he's already winning it. What's even crazier is this. Shedeur didn't go begging for a backup role after the cut. He didn't lower his voice, walk into someone's training camp with a chip on his shoulder, and try to earn his spot back. Instead, he said, "Cool. You want to cut me? I'll build my own table." And the reason that move hits so hard is because how often do you see a young player get dropped, and instead of fading into off-season anonymity, they become more relevant? That's legacy energy. That's what Mahomes has. That's what Lamar carries. That's what Brady had by year 4. Shedeur's doing it before his rookie deal even fully matures. He's turned NFL rejection into rocket fuel. And while the Browns are watching preseason tape, trying to convince themselves Dylan Gabriel is the answer, Shedeur is being courted, not just by fans, not just by brands, but by culture. He's become the conversation. And look, let's get real for a second. When's the last time you saw a backup QB trend this hard? When's the last time a cut player generated this much buzz without a single scandal, trade rumor, or tweet storm? Because Shedeur didn't go viral for what he said. He went viral for what he did. He made a $14 million chess move that said, "I don't need your stage. I've got my own." And that's what Cleveland miscalculated. They thought cutting him would take away his power, that the headlines would die down, that the hype would deflate. But what they didn't realize was they weren't the source of the hype. Shedeur was. He brought the gravity with him. He brought the juice. He brought the fans, the energy, the intrigue. Cleveland just rented it, and now they've returned it to sender. So now what? Well, here's what's unfolding. Other teams are watching. And not just watching, they're quietly planning. Coaches who originally passed on Shedeur are suddenly asking their scouts to take another look. GMs who were hesitant about the media presence are now realizing they missed the boat on a generational leader. And most interesting of all, quarterbacks across the league are watching too. Because Shedeur didn't just rewrite his own script, he rewrote theirs. He just proved you don't have to stay quiet. You don't have to wait your turn. You don't have to fade into the background when the front office makes a call that doesn't reflect your value. You can speak. You can build. You can pivot. And you can come out stronger. Let's talk about what that $14 million move actually includes, because this isn't just an endorsement deal or a hype announcement. It's a full-scale, multi-layered play. A youth football development program in underfunded communities. A documentary series chronicling his rise, fall, and response. Shot by one of the hottest up-and-coming sports producers in the game. A sports tech investment in wearable data-driven gear for quarterbacks in training, co-signed by actual legends. And a foundation grant matching program where Sanders will match donations to youth athletics programs across the U.S. Oh, and he's still fielding offers from NFL teams that know this is all just beginning. So no, Shedeur isn't done. He's not on a break. He's not reevaluating. He's in expansion mode. And the Browns? They're watching a man they cut take a situation meant to break him and turn it into a model that might outlive half the league's GM tenures. You know what's poetic? That same Cleveland fan base that was fed the "he's not ready" speech, they're now flooding every team post, every preseason clip, every press conference asking the same question. Where's Shedeur? And eventually, one smart team is going to answer that call. One bold franchise is going to make the phone call, sign the deal, and say, "We'll take the brand. We'll take the leader. We'll take the vision. And yes, we'll take the quarterback." And when that happens, Cleveland will officially be the footnote. So let this be the final word on it. You don't get to define Shedeur Sanders by where he was drafted. You don't get to reduce him to his father's shadow. And you definitely don't get to dismiss him just because he made you uncomfortable. Because discomfort? That's what greatness looks like before it's understood. And now the whole league understands. Shedeur Sanders got dropped. Then he built a $14 million empire. And next, he's going to torch the field with the same precision he used to torch expectations. Mark it down. Because when he returns, it won't be as a backup. It won't be as a prospect. It'll be as the player they all should have built around. And the Browns? They'll still be explaining why they let the future walk out the door for free. Let me know in the comments. Is this the most iconic rebound move in modern NFL history? Which team should take the shot and build around Shedeur? And of course, subscribe. Because this saga? It's just getting started. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't just turn getting dropped into a comeback. He redefined what a comeback even looks like. You've heard of a chip on your shoulder? Shedeur took that chip, melted it down, and turned it into a crown. And now he's walking into the league, not asking for respect, but demanding it with presence alone. But here's the thing about the NFL. For all its billions, for all its tradition, for all its metrics and scouting reports, it still can't quite handle players who don't wait their turn. Shedeur refused to sit quietly. He refused to downplay his platform. He refused to let outdated systems box him into a rookie role. And for that, he got cut. But in that rejection, he found freedom. And freedom is dangerous when it lands in the hands of someone that driven. Let's break down what that looks like, not from the headlines, but from the ripple effect already sweeping through the league. Because Shedeur's story? It's no longer just about him. It's about what he's set in motion. The league-wide ripple. Let's start with the quarterbacks already on shaky footing. You know the ones, mid-tier guys holding on to starting roles with duct tape and a few solid weeks of game management. You think they're not watching Shedeur's every move right now? Because they are. They've seen the press. They've seen the fans. They've seen what it looks like when a QB controls his own narrative. And they know their margin for error just got way thinner. Why? Because the second their stats start dipping, the media's not going to call for a backup. They're going to say, what about Sanders? And once that name is in the air, it lingers. Because Shedeur isn't some untested, raw project anymore. He's now the people's QB. The fans chose him. The media followed. The culture sealed the deal. And you know who really hates that? Teams that didn't see it coming. College athletes are watching too. Let's not pretend Shedeur's only influence is in the NFL. College locker rooms are buzzing. Every young dual-threat QB who's been told, tone it down. Don't tweet that. Stay in line, just watch Shedeur get dropped, and rise up even stronger. That's proof of concept that you can bet on yourself, brand yourself, be yourself, and still command a room. So now high schoolers? Nil athletes? D1 quarterbacks? They're looking at Shedeur like a blueprint. Not just for success, but for survival in a league that still plays chess with real people's careers. And that shift? It's generational. Because for the first time, young players know they have options. You don't make the roster? Cool. Build the audience. Build the business. Make yourself so undeniable that the league has to come back to you. And when they do, you're negotiating from the throne, not the bench. What the Browns can't say out loud. Let's circle back to Cleveland. Because trust me, they're feeling this. They won't admit it. They'll point to depth charts, practice reps, culture fit nonsense. But behind closed doors, they're spiraling. Because whether they admit it or not, they underestimated the storm. They thought they were releasing a backup. What they actually released. A movement. And now that movement has gone national. Global even. Shedeur's not just trending in Ohio. He's being discussed on British sports radio, Australian podcasts, Canadian sports networks. His reach? International. And the Browns? Still stuck in local disaster control mode. They can't explain why they cut the one guy who could have energized their fan base, rallied their locker room, and brought in new sponsors, without asking for a single dime in marketing support. It's not just a misstep. It's a masterclass in how to mishandle modern talent. What Shedeur did with silence. And let's not forget one of the most powerful weapons Shedeur wielded through this entire saga. Silence. No rage tweets. No dramatic IG stories. No, I'll show them captions with angry workout videos. He went dark. Then he went bigger. And when he did speak, it was through an organized rollout, a calculated announcement, a business play that was louder than any quote. Silence plus strategy equals domination. It's the new model for athletes in the spotlight. He didn't fight the team's decision. He didn't beg for a second chance. He just made himself the center of gravity and let the world spin around him. Future teams, future mistakes. Let's talk about what's coming next. Because you know there's going to be a team, maybe not the Browns, but someone who thinks they can lowball Shedeur into a third-string spot. And when they do, the fans will explode. The analysts will roast them. And Shedeur? He'll smile, politely decline, Then sign another media-first partnership that elevates his profile even higher. He doesn't need to rush back into a uniform to prove his worth. Because the world already knows. They know he's sharp. They know he's composed. They know he can lead. And most importantly, they know he didn't fold when the system folded on him. He pivoted. And that's why his stock is still climbing, despite no team patch on his chest. The road ahead. So where does this all go? Simple. Shedeur is going to take his time. He's going to wait for the right team, the right system, the right offer. One that sees him, not just his numbers. And when that happens, he'll walk in, not with a chip on his shoulder, but with a pen in his hand, ready to sign a deal that puts him back on the field and keeps his empire intact. He won't just be a quarterback. He'll be a co-founder of the next version of NFL superstardom. And every single step will be watched, analyzed, copied. Because it's working. He's already influenced athletes, coaches, brands, and fans. And the only people still pretending he's not the future are the ones desperately trying to save face after letting him go. So, to every fan still wondering if Shedeur Sanders will make it, here's your answer. He already did. And the best part? He made it without their permission. Let us know in the comments. Which team deserves a shot at redemption by signing Shedeur? Which GM needs to swallow their pride and make the call? And if you're loving the chaos, the drama, and the poetic justice of it all, hit subscribe. Because this saga, it's not just a sports story. It's a masterclass in modern power.